Court bullies faced the legend. They mocked an old man on the basketball court, until his shocking NBA secret left them speechless. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the King Street courts, a popular basketball spot tucked away in the heart of West Side Heights. The cracked concrete surface and chain-link fences had witnessed thousands of games over decades, but the court's faded glory only added to its mystique. In this neighborhood, reputations were built and shattered on these hallowed grounds. Today, as usual, the court belonged to Darius Jackson and his crew. Marcus Perry, 62 years old with salt and pepper hair and a slight stoop to his shoulders, approached the courts with a well-worn basketball tucked under his arm. His weathered hands told stories of decades past, and the deep lines on his face mapped out a life of experiences. Standing at 6'3", he was tall but appeared fragile in his loose-fitting grey sweatpants and faded blue t-shirt. His knees, visibly knobbly under the sweatpants, seemed to protest with each step he took. Despite his somewhat frail appearance, there was something in his eyes, a quiet confidence perhaps, that seemed out of place with his physical demeanor. Marcus had moved to West Side Heights just 2 weeks ago, downsizing after his wife's passing. The modest apartment complex across from the courts was affordable, and he had hoped the proximity to basketball would keep him connected to the game he had always loved. He'd watched the younger players from his window every day since arriving, analyzing their moves, admiring their energy, and occasionally shaking his head at their showboating. Today, after much deliberation, he had decided to join them. At the court, 5-on-5 action was in full swing. Darius Jackson, 25, ruled these courts with an iron fist and a silky jump shot. Standing at 6'2", with an athletic build, cornrowed hair and a sleeve of tattoos down his right arm, he commanded respect from everyone who stepped onto the asphalt. His crew, particularly his right-hand man Jamal Williams and the hulking enforcer they called Brick, ensured his authority was never questioned. Jamal was shorter than Darius but made up for it with quick hands and a quicker mouth. His trash talk was legendary in West Side, able to get under the skin of even the most composed players. Brick, on the other hand, rarely spoke. At 6'6", and built like the defensive lineman he once was in high school, he used his body to intimidate and punish anyone who dared challenge Darius's dominance. Several onlookers lingered around the court, some hoping for a chance to play, others just there to watch the daily display of basketball prowess and social hierarchy. Among them was Tasha Reynolds, a physical education teacher at the local high school, who occasionally played when the courts weren't dominated by Darius's aggressive games. Marcus stood quietly at the fence, watching the play unfold. After the game ended with Darius's team winning by a comfortable margin, Marcus saw his opportunity and shuffled onto the court, his ball still tucked under his arm. "Excuse me?" Marcus called out, his voice stronger than his appearance might suggest. "Any chance I could join the next game?" The court fell silent for a moment before Darius and his crew exchanged glances and burst into laughter. "Yo, Gramps," Darius called out, strutting toward Marcus with the confidence of a man who owned every inch of territory his feet touched. "I think you got the wrong address. The senior center's down on 5th Street. Jamal snickered, adding, "Yeah, old man, they play bingo there on Tuesdays. Today's basketball day, you know, for people who can actually run." Marcus stood his ground, bouncing the ball once. "I can still play a bit. Wouldn't mind running with you young fellas for a game or two." Brick moved forward, towering over Marcus. Though they were similar in height, Brick's frame made him seem much larger. "You serious right now? You'd slow the whole game down. We ain't playing no charity games here." Marcus remained unfazed. "I understand, just thought I'd ask." There was something in his calm demeanor that briefly unsettled Darius, but the younger man quickly dismissed it. "Tell you what, old-timer," Darius said with a smirk. "Show us what you got. Take a shot from the three-point line. If you make it, maybe, just maybe, we'll think about letting you play." The others on the court had stopped to watch the interaction, most of them smirking, anticipating the humiliation of the old man. Marcus nodded slowly, took the ball, and walked to the three-point line. He dribbled once, twice, and then attempted a shot. The ball arced through the air but hit the rim and bounced away. The court erupted in laughter. "Damn, Gramps," Jamal howled. "You almost hit the backboard that time." "Look at him, man," Darius added, wiping away tears of laughter. "My grandma shoots better than that, and she's in a wheelchair." Marcus retrieved the ball with dignity. "Mind if I try one more time?" he asked. "Nah, we've seen enough," Darius replied, snatching the ball from him. "We're trying to play some real ball here. Why don't you go feed some pigeons or something?" Marcus's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but something deeper. Maybe another time then, he said, turning to leave the court. Yeah, maybe when hell freezes over, Jamal called after him, prompting more laughter from the group. As Marcus walked away, Tasha, who had witnessed the entire exchange, shook her head in disapproval, but remained silent. The games resumed, and Marcus found a bench just outside the fence where he sat and continued to watch. For the next few days, Marcus established a routine. He would appear at the courts in the afternoons, politely asked to join, and be summarily rejected by Darius and his crew. Each time, the mockery grew more elaborate and cruel. Look who's back, it's Father Time himself. Yo, old man, you got a death wish or something? One hard screen and you'll shatter like glass. Someone called the retirement home. One of their residents escaped again. Each time, Marcus would simply nod, sometimes attempt another shot if they allowed it, always missing, as if his body couldn't execute what his mind intended, and then take his place on the bench to watch the games. He never showed anger, never responded to their taunts with anything but quiet dignity. This only seemed to infuriate Darius more. What's his problem? Darius muttered to Jamal one afternoon as they watched Marcus take his usual spot on the bench. Why's he keep coming back just to get embarrassed? Jamal shrugged. Maybe he's senile or just lonely. Old people are weird, man. On the fifth day, Darius decided to escalate the situation. When Marcus approached and made his usual request to join the game, Darius smiled coldly. You know what? I'm feeling generous today, he said. You can play. Marcus's face brightened slightly. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hold up, Darius continued, his smile turning into a smirk. There's a condition. You gotta pay the entry fee. Entry fee? Marcus questioned. What's that? $50, Darius stated, holding out his hand. That's what it costs for special guests like you. Marcus looked around at the other players, none of whom would meet his gaze. I wasn't aware there was a fee to play on public courts. There usually ain't, Darius replied. But we make exceptions for people who might, lower the quality of the game. Marcus considered this for a moment. I don't think that's fair. Life ain't fair, old man, Brick chimed in, moving closer to Marcus. Now either pay up or get lost. For real this time. Marcus looked at the money in his wallet. He had exactly $50, money he had set aside for groceries that week. After a moment's hesitation, he handed it over to Darius, who pocketed it with a grin. All right then, Darius said. You can play next game. You're on Jamal's team. Jamal's eyes widened. What? No way, man. I don't want him dragging us down. Darius chuckled. That's the point. What followed was not so much a basketball game as a deliberate humiliation. Jamal refused to pass to Marcus, even when he was wide open. When Marcus was guarding someone, the opposing player would make a show of how easily they could get past him. At one point, Darius purposely threw the ball hard at Marcus's chest, knocking him back a step. My bad, Gramps, Darius called out, insincerely. Guess you can't handle a real pass. Throughout it all, Marcus remained composed, never complaining, never reacting to the taunts. He ran up and down the court as best he could, which was admittedly slower than the others, and tried to contribute to his team. When the predictable loss came, a crushing 21-7 defeat, Jamal was furious. That's the last time you play on my team, he spat at Marcus. Matter of fact, that's the last time you play on this court, period. We gave you your chance and you were straight garbage. Marcus nodded, seemingly accepting the verdict. Thanks for the opportunity, he said simply, then walked back to his bench outside the fence. As he walked away, Darius called after him, Keep your $50 next time. Use it for a better hobby. Shuffleboard, maybe. The group laughed, and the games continued without Marcus's participation. But he returned the next day and the next, always sitting on the same bench watching quietly. A week after the humiliating game, something happened that changed the dynamic. Darius was showing off, attempting an elaborate dunk when he landed. Awkwardly and twisted his ankle, he fell to the ground, cursing loudly. Damn, man, you all right? Jamal asked, helping him up. Darius tested his weight on the injured ankle and winced. It's just a sprain. I'll be fine in a couple days. As his friends helped him to the sidelines, Marcus approached cautiously. I have some experience with sprains, he offered. May I take a look? Get away from me, old man, Darius snapped. I don't need your help. Marcus shrugged and stepped back. Ice it for 20 minutes, then wrap it tight. Keep it elevated when you're sitting down. Stay off it for at least 3 days. Darius glared at him but said nothing, as his friends helped him limp away from the courts. The games broke up early that day, and Marcus found himself alone on the court for the first time since he'd arrived in the neighborhood. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then slowly began to dribble the ball. His movements were hesitant at first, almost as if he was remembering something long forgotten. Then gradually a transformation began to take place. Marcus's stooped posture straightened. His dribbling became more confident, more controlled. He moved to the three-point line and took a shot. This time the ball sailed through the net with a satisfying swish. He retrieved the ball and did it again. Another perfect shot. For the next hour, as the sun began to set over Westside Heights, Marcus Perry moved around the court with the grace and skill of a much younger man. His jump shots were precise, his footwork impeccable. To anyone watching, it would have been clear that this was no ordinary senior citizen. This was a man who had once lived and breathed basketball at a level far beyond the street games played by Darius and his crew, but no one was watching, or so he thought. Tasha. Reynolds had forgotten her whistle at the court and had returned to retrieve it. She stood frozen at the fence, watching in amazement as Marcus executed a perfect fadeaway jumper, reminiscent of NBA legends from decades past. When he finally noticed her presence, Marcus stopped abruptly, his face betraying a hint of embarrassment at being caught. "That was impressive," Tasha said, entering the court. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Marcus bounced the ball thoughtfully before answering. "A long time ago, in another life, you might say." "You've been holding back," she observed. "Why let those guys treat you that way when you can play like this?" Marcus shrugged. "Sometimes it's not about what you can do, it's about when you choose to do it." Tasha studied him for a moment. "You look familiar. Have we met before?" A small smile played at the corners of Marcus's mouth. "I doubt it. I'm new to the area." "No, I mean your face. It's familiar somehow." She snapped her fingers suddenly. "Wait here." She hurried to her car and returned with a basketball magazine from her coaching bag. She flipped through the pages until she found what she was looking for, a retrospective article on NBA legends of the 80s and 90s. "Oh my God," she whispered, looking from the magazine to Marcus and back again. "You're Mark the Phantom Perry. All-Star, 3 championship rings, one of the greatest shooters of the 90s. Marcus's smile widened slightly. "That was a long time ago. But why are you here? And why are you letting those jerks treat you like that?" Tasha asked incredulously. "I moved here to be closer to my daughter and grandkids after my wife passed," Marcus explained. "As for the rest," he paused, dribbling the ball thoughtfully. "I've learned over the years that respect earned slowly lasts longer than respect demanded instantly. Those young men, they play with passion but no purpose. They mistake intimidation for leadership. So what's your plan? Keep letting them humiliate you?" Marcus shook his head. "Just waiting for the right moment. Basketball taught me patience above all else." He looked at Tasha seriously. "I'd appreciate if you kept this between us for now." Tasha hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but I want a courtside seat when whatever you're planning goes down." In the days that followed, with Darius temporarily sidelined by his injury, the dynamic at the court shifted slightly. Jamal attempted to take over as the alpha, but he lacked Darius's natural leadership. The games became more inclusive as other regulars from the neighborhood got more playing time. Marcus continued to watch from his bench, occasionally exchanging knowing glances with Tasha, who now made a point of stopping by the courts more often. After a week, Darius returned, his ankle wrapped but functional. His crew welcomed him back with enthusiasm, and he quickly reasserted his dominance over the court. When he spotted Marcus on his usual bench, his eyes narrowed. "Look who's still here," he announced loudly. "Thought you might have died of old age by now, Gramps." Marcus nodded politely. "Good to see your ankle's better." "No thanks to you," Darius scoffed, though he had reluctantly followed Marcus's advice about icing and elevation. The afternoon proceeded with the usual games, but there was a different energy in the air. More spectators than usual had gathered, including several who weren't regular fixtures at the court. Word had somehow spread that something interesting might happen today. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus finally stood from his bench and approached the court during a break between games. "Mind if I play today?" he asked, same as always. Darius looked at his friends and laughed. "Man, you don't give up, do you? We already took your $50. What more you want? Another humiliation?" "Just a friendly game," Marcus replied calmly. "Maybe a little wager to make it interesting." This caught Darius's attention. "A wager? What you got in mind, old-timer?" "One-on-one. If I win, I get to play here whenever I want. No harassment. And you return my $50. Darius smirked. "And when I win, I'll never set foot on this court again and—" Marcus paused dramatically. "I'll give you my car." Murmurs swept through the gathering crowd. Marcus drove a well-maintained vintage Cadillac, not worth a fortune, but certainly worth more than $50. "Your car," Darius repeated, surprised by the stakes. "You serious?" Dead serious, Marcus confirmed. One game, first to 11 points, must win by 2. Darius looked at his friends, who were all nodding enthusiastically. You got yourself a deal, old man. Hope you got a bus pass ready. The court cleared quickly as people moved to the sides to watch the unexpected showdown. Tasha had positioned herself close to the action, trying to contain her smile. She knew what was coming. Age before beauty, Darius said mockingly, tossing the ball to Marcus. You can start. Marcus caught the ball and bounced it slowly, deliberately. He looked different somehow. His posture was straighter, his eyes focused. The transformation that Tasha had witnessed in private was beginning to reveal itself publicly. Thank you, Marcus said, and then moved with sudden, startling quickness. It happened so fast that many observers weren't sure what they'd seen. One moment, Marcus was casually dribbling at the top of the key. The next, he had executed a perfect crossover, left Darius flat-footed, and laid the ball gently against the backboard and through the hoop. 1-0, Marcus announced quietly as the crowd erupted in surprised exclamations. Darius blinked, momentarily stunned. Lucky move, he muttered, retrieving the ball. Won't happen again, but it did happen again, and again, and again. With each possession, Marcus revealed more of his true skill. His crossover dribble left Darius stumbling. His fadeaway jumper was untouchable. His understanding of angles and timing made him seem as if he could predict Darius's every move before. It happened. The score quickly became 7-0 in Marcus's favor. The crowd had grown larger as word spread rapidly through the neighborhood. Smartphones were out, recording the shocking dismantling of Westside Heights' self-proclaimed king of the court. Darius, frustrated and increasingly desperate, resorted to physical play, bumping and pushing Marcus whenever the referee, a regular, courtgoer who had volunteered for the role, wasn't looking directly at them. Marcus absorbed the contact without complaint, continuing his methodical dissection of Darius's defense. At 9-0, Darius finally scored on a desperate three-pointer that banked in unintentionally. The crowd cheered sarcastically, which only infuriated Darius more. He managed another basket when Marcus, perhaps showing his age slightly, lost his footing momentarily, but at 9-2, Marcus ended the suspense. He executed a move that had been his signature during his professional days, a hesitation dribble, followed by a step-back jumper that created just enough space between him and his defender. The ball arced high and dropped perfectly through the net. 10-2, Marcus announced calmly. Darius, red-faced and sweating profusely, glared at him. This ain't over, he growled, but the defeat in his voice was already evident. For the final point, Marcus didn't resort to showmanship or unnecessary flash. He simply outmaneuvered Darius with fundamental footwork, created space, and hit a simple mid-range jumper, the kind he'd probably made thousands of times throughout his career. The crowd erupted as the game-winning shot fell through the net. Marcus stood calmly at the spot where he'd taken the shot, watching as the reality of what had just happened sank in for Darius and his crew. "Who are you, man?" Jamal asked, his earlier mockery replaced by genuine awe. Before Marcus could answer, Tasha stepped forward with the basketball magazine she'd shown Marcus earlier. She opened it to the article about NBA legends and held it up for everyone to see. The page featured a younger Marcus Perry, airborne in his Chicago Bulls uniform, releasing a jump shot over an outstretched defender. "This," she announced loudly, "is Mark the Phantom Perry, 3-time NBA champion, 7-time All-Star, still holds the record for most consecutive free throws made in playoff history, one of the greatest shooters the game has ever seen." Hush fell over the court as everyone processed this information. Darius stared at the magazine, then at Marcus, his expression a complex mixture of shock, embarrassment, and dawning respect. "Why didn't you say something?" Darius finally asked. "Why'd you let us treat you like that when you could do this the whole time?" Marcus wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "Because basketball isn't just about skill," he said, his voice carrying across the now silent court. "It's about character. It's about how you treat people, especially people you think can't offer you anything." He looked around at the gathered crowd. "I've played on courts, all over this country, from gleaming NBA arenas to cracked concrete like this. And I've learned that the true measure of a player, of a person, isn't how they treat the stars. It's how they treat the ones they think don't matter." Marcus turned back to Darius. "You've got real talent. All of you do," he added, glancing at Jamal and Brick. "But you waste it on intimidation and mockery. You could be lifting each other up, making everyone better. Instead, you tear people down to feel powerful." Darius looked at the ground, unable to meet Marcus's gaze. Several long moments passed before he finally reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $50 bill. He held it out to Marcus. "Here, he said quietly. "I'm sorry about everything." Marcus accepted the money with a nod. "Thank you. So, what happens now?" Jamal asked, breaking the tense silence. "You gonna take over the court or something?" Marcus chuckled. "I didn't come here to take over anything. I came here to play basketball, to enjoy the game I've loved my whole life, maybe share a few things I've learned along the way." He looked at the gathered players. "There's room for everyone on this court. Different styles, different skill levels. Basketball at its best brings people together, not divides them." In the days that followed, the atmosphere at King Street courts transformed dramatically. Marcus became a regular player, but more importantly, a mentor. He organized proper pickup, games with rotating teams, ensuring everyone who wanted to play got a chance. He offered tips and advice to anyone who asked, showing the same patience and attention whether they were talented like Darius or just learning the game. Darius, after some initial awkwardness, began to embrace the new dynamic. His natural leadership abilities, channeled more positively, made him an ideal organizer for the weekend tournaments that Marcus suggested. Jamal discovered a talent for coaching younger players, his quick mind and understanding of the game, making him an effective teacher when he wasn't focused on tearing others down. Even Brick revealed hidden depths. Behind his intimidating exterior was a thoughtful player with exceptional court vision. Under Marcus's guidance, he developed into an outstanding passer, taking pride in setting up his teammates for success rather than merely using his size to dominate. 1 month after the legendary one-on-one game, Marcus sat on his usual bench, now a place of honor rather than exile, watching a 3-on-3 tournament he had helped organize. Teams from across the neighborhood had entered, creating a festive atmosphere rarely seen at King Street courts. Tasha sat down beside him, offering a bottle of water. "You know, when I first realized who you were, I thought you were going to teach Darius and his crew a lesson by embarrassing them," she admitted. "But this is better." Marcus nodded, watching as Darius high-fived a younger player who had just made a good defensive play. Humiliation doesn't teach, it hardens. True change comes from understanding. "Still," Tasha said with a smile, "that game was something to see. The look on Darius's face when you hit that step-back jumper," Marcus laughed. "I have to admit that felt good. Been a while since I've played like that." "Any regrets about revealing your secret?" she asked. Marcus thought for a moment, then shook his head. "None. I've spent years being Mark the Phantom Perry, the NBA legend. It's nice to just be Marcus again, playing the game I love." He gazed out at the court, where players of all ages and skill levels were enjoying the game, supporting each other, competing with respect. Sometimes the best way to deal with bullies isn't to beat them, it's to show them a better way to be. As if on cue, Darius jogged over, dripping with sweat from his just-finished game. "Hey, coach," he said, the title they'd all taken to calling Marcus. "We got a team from Eastside that's talking big game. Want to coach us for this next one?" Marcus stood up, a spark of competitive fire lighting in his eyes. "Wouldn't miss it," he said, following Darius back to the court where a new generation was learning not just how to play basketball, but how to build community. As they walked, Darius hesitated, then asked, "You ever miss it? The NBA, the fame, all that?" Marcus looked around the modest court with its chain-link fence and cracked concrete, at the players of varying talents giving their all, at the neighbors cheering from the sidelines. He smiled. "Not today," he said. "Not today."